The digital world moves fast, but real growth comes from real conversations. This is e-Coffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Victor here with Coffee with Experts, and today I am even more happier than usual because Barcelona just won against Real Madrid in the final of the Copa del Rey. And as you can see here by the screen already, Ivan, the guest of today, is also a Barcelona fan, but we'll get to it. We'll get to all the victories that we can talk about. Because you see, why did I start talking about Barcelona? Because today we're going to be talking about the Spanish market itself, but not only about it, but about educational materials for people to learn Spanish. So even in Spain and outside of it, if anyone else needs to understand, needs to study, needs to embrace themselves into the Spanish language, we have something that we can discuss about it today. Because Ivan, he's the sales and the marketing director at Difusión, which is a educational material. How can I say, Ivan? What can be the correct term? So educational material developer would not be it, right? But like editorial.
Well, hi everybody. So I would describe it as a publisher. So we are
Publisher.
a language
Perfect.
publisher. We publish books, but not only books, of course, a lot of other materials and content, either print,
Perfect.
digital, hybrid, in order for people to learn Spanish.
Since 1988.
Since 1988.
So we've been talking about very company who's been working for it for a very long time, been through all the birth of the internet, been through the birth of Web 2.0, Web 3.0, everything that happened both in the marketing and in the entertainment business, you've been through it, right? That's how long the company has been around. So thank you for educating and correcting me. Iván Chica Palacios, everyone. Hope we will have an amazing time listening to the man because I'm already having a great time. Ivan, thank you for coming to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you for inviting me.
Amazing. I'm just really looking forward to talk to you. Just, I think, a little trivia before we start and for everybody to understand how knowledgeable you are. But we were talking in Portuguese before clicking on recording and in English, and we can talk in Spanish. And he has two more languages that he's fluent in, which are
Catalan, which is
Perfect.
another language in
not
Catalonia,
Spanish, yeah.
and French.
And French. Perfect. So during the final of the Champions League, which will be Barcelona and PSG, you already know that Ivan will be cursing PSG in French and in Catalonian and in Spanish and all the other languages that he can.
Exactly.
That's even better.
Exactly.
Visca Barça. Ivan, why don't we start? People already know that you are a Barcelona fan and that you're working at Difusión as the sales and marketing director. But naturally, we want to know a little bit more about the person itself. So I think, interesting enough, why don't you talk to us about how you managed to get so many languages into your portfolio? Why did you chase this? And if it has something to do with Difusión, just enlighten us, please.
Well, actually, you were talking about 5 languages in which I'm fluent, but I also speak a few other languages at different levels. Yeah, because
Nice.
I speak some Dutch, Galician, which is another regional language in Spain,
Portugal?
Italian, and I'm now learning German. Yes.
Wow, interesting. The languages that you're studying right now, they're mostly European ones. Do you have a dream of going to like Asian languages as well?
Probably not, because I think they're
Okay.
too difficult. Already German,
and
which is a
different, right?
European, German is already still a European language, but still very complicated for, native Latin
It is.
languages speaker. So German is already being challenging for me, which is, I take it more as a challenge because
Nice.
I like challenges.
Great.
And going back to your question, I've always loved languages. When I was really young, the education system wasn't as it is now. So we didn't start learning English at, now we start when you're 3 years old. But in my time, it was a bit later on. And I was already so interested in English that my teachers were like, are you doing any English outside the school? Because you're learning way too fast. And I was like, no, I'm just interested. So yeah, and then they offer me in high school, do you want to go for additional optional French? lessons? And I said, yes, let's go for
Nice.
it. So, and then I picked it up from there. And then, my life history and things that happened into my life that took me to learn other languages like Portuguese, like Netherlands, Dutch. So yeah, I've been very interested, and people usually tell me like, wow, you have such an ease with languages. So yeah, this actually took me naturally to work at Difusión because they actually came for me. They wanted
Oh,
somebody
that's
with my
nice.
experience, with could speak different languages, because we're talking here about Difusión as a Spanish publisher, but we are a group of publishers. We also have Edición Maison de Langue, which is a French publisher, and Casa delle Lingue, which is an Italian publisher. So
Perfect.
I'm managing the three brands, Difusión, Edición Maison de Langue, and Casa delle Lingue, because we are experts in teaching or learning or creating materials for teaching Spanish as a foreign language, French as a foreign language, and Italian as a foreign language.
Why don't you run through how the sales cycle then is for the three of them? Because right now, taking myself as an example, I learned English in the English school back in Brazil. So I understand that every single year I had to buy materials, books for the year itself. But right now we are in such a different age as when I started learning English. We have the internet to help us, we have online courses, we have apps. Duolingo, for example, is the most famous one and is the one that I'm currently using to keep track of my Spanish every day. So the market has changed so much in regards to how you can learn and how you can educate yourself in regards to languages that I'm naturally curious to understand you as a sales director taking care of three different languages inside the same group. How is right now that you're handling your own customers? How is the marketing strategies right now? If you can talk a little bit more about it, that would be fantastic.
Well, first of all, we have to say that we are a worldwide publisher, which
Perfect.
means wherever there's a demand to learn Spanish, French, or Italian, there we are selling our books and our materials. But we work with all kind of segments. So we have materials for even pre-lecture children to adults, which makes it a bit more complicated because we
Hmm.
work with all type of institutions, from
True.
kindergartens to primary schools, secondary schools, upper secondary schools, adult education schools, Instituto Cervantes, Institut Français, Instituto Italiano di Cultura, universities, private language schools. Every institution works in a different way, and
Hmm.
the sales cycle is different because sometimes it's the institution that will buy the materials from us, either print or either digital or hybrid. But in most of the cases, it's a prescription sales structure. So a
Okay.
teacher or a school decides to use our books, but then it's up to the students, sometimes the parents, sometimes the students themselves, if we're talking about adults, who will buy the books. So they have to find those books so they can buy our books or our digital content on Amazon or on our own e-commerce. Sometimes we have to fight with secondhand, sometimes even with
Mm,
photocopies or any other illegal activities. So our sales cycle is very complicated because we work
I
with
imagine.
197 countries in the world. We work with a bunch of distributors. Every country has its own particularities. Like in many countries where we're talking about the school segments, like what we call the K-12, from more or less from 3 to 18. So the regulated school, we have to follow specific curriculums for a lot of countries. Even in regions like in Spain or France, every region has a different curriculum. So we have to adapt the books. So we have a very strong product strategy in regards to customization. We have to do a lot of adaptations in the books for specific markets to meet their requirements, whether it's cultural, whether it's something social, whether it's something regulatory, like following curriculums.
Hmm.
So personalization and adaptation is key for us, not only in the products, but also in the communications. We cannot communicate in the same way to, let's say, Spanish teachers in Brazil, which Brazil is a big market for us, than in Germany. The communications is different. So we have to, even, in some countries, we have to sometimes use their own language to communicate. Sometimes we don't have to do it. So we use the Spanish language because we are aiming Spanish teachers. So
Hmm.
personalization, customization, adaptation are key to our marketing and sales strategy.
Perfect. And then we were talking about the challenges themselves, but at the end of the day, if there are challenges, there are good strategies to come up with those challenges. And do you have a most effective strategy that you like to utilize that drives growth and expansion? As you said, depending on the market, the strategy itself will be different. In Brazil, you have to talk in a different tone than in Germany. But overall, talking about the most perfect scenario, let's just say, is there right now a strategy that you and Difusión and the other two brands are utilizing that usually works well towards growth? Or is it still a case by case scenario, a country by country scenario?
We do have some like basic guidelines, a basic strategy that we use for the worldwide, even though we do a lot of adaptations and customizations regarding products and messaging and communications, but we are focusing on high quality content creation. So we
Perfect.
want to be perceived as the experts. And if we talk about Spanish as a foreign language, we want to be seen as the experts. So we organize tons of webinars, a lot of face-to-face trainings. We organize the biggest congresses in Spanish as a foreign language. For instance, we do one congress in Spain every year, but it has a worldwide reach with
Perfect.
around 300 teachers. So we are the institution or the company that is gathering the biggest amount of teachers in the world. And it's a publisher more than, I don't know, Instituto Cervantes is one of the main institutions that communicate and they work towards, the knowledge of Spanish culture and the Spanish language. But still, publisher like us, like Difusión, we are managing to gather the biggest amount of teachers because we attract them because of our high quality content. And we are, in many cases, we are trendsetters. So they're waiting for our trainings to see, okay, what's coming in teaching Spanish. We are working hard to, be everywhere in events around the world to see, okay, who's the latest expert in this area, who has new ideas that we can exploit, who has new ideas that we can actually deploy in our books. So we are perceived as this really high quality and trend setting publisher.
And you talked about you being a trendsetter, which is amazing. Congratulations, by the way. And with so many teachers waiting around the clock to see the things that you're going to come up with, how are you right now making sure that they receive the message? My question would be, is there an approach to this community building that you created, this community that is already following you? And is this something that you as a sales and marketing director always is aware of and being cautious about? Or since this is already a well-established position that you have, they just look around to come up with what you are bringing to the table?
Again, I think our strategy is mainly have the best content.
Perfect.
So we are managing to attract them and to build this community by providing the really best content, the best lecturers in our events. And we are always up to date on our webinars. Sometimes we have 1,000 people on a webinar talking just, about a new trend in learning or in teaching. We are very much aligned with technology as well. So, of course, we've been talking about, for instance, AI for the last 2 years and how can you apply AI to learning or teaching languages. Yeah, we do have a lot of people, and I meet myself when we do these big events. I talk to a lot of teachers, and I love it when they are really fans and they're like, oh my God, you work at Difusión, you are the marketing director at Difusión. It's like, they worship our books and our methods and our technologies and our solutions. And for me, this is extremely rewarding to see that we have managed to build this community, maybe because we were pretty much the first ones in the industry back in 1988 to start talking about Spanish as a foreign language. And we were also the creators of the communication approach in learning, because before us, everything was based on grammar and very structured and repeating, learning by repeating. We came with a new concept, communicating. You learn by communicating. So you learn language in context. Of course, you do grammar. Of course, you do vocabulary, but you learn it in context. And then we also have the task-based approach, which we make you follow some challenges in order for you to use the language in real situations. So we were the beginners of this. We were the creators of the task-based and the communication approach in teaching Spanish. So then a lot of competitors came and copied us, and now it's pretty much a standard. But we were the first ones. And some people still remember us as like, yes, you were the creators of this new approach. Yeah.
You see, because it's something to be the first one, but it's another thing to continue being the first one for such a long time.
Exactly. And especially because competition is tough. I mean,
It
I'm not
is.
saying we are the only ones in the market doing great stuff. There are competitors offering great stuff as well, and they're very
Perfect.
hard on, on the commercial side. But we don't want to be a very aggressive commercial company. We are more on the one-to-one, the peer-to-peer. We love to do this teacher-to-teacher. Most of my team members in the marketing and sales departments, they were teachers. Some of them, they're still even active teachers. So we like this approach, like teacher to teacher. We're not just convincing you. As a teacher, we're telling you this works because we've tried. I've myself been not a full-time teacher, but I've taught. I've taught students languages specifically, and we have this peer-to-peer, this teacher-to-teacher approach. On a soft approach, we really want to understand your needs. We don't just want to sell you whatever. We really want to understand the needs, and that's why we also put a lot of effort in understanding our customers. We do tons of focus groups. We test every product before being launched. It's validated by a big amount of teachers worldwide. Like every Spanish book will always have a Brazilian validator because, for instance, Brazil is very important for Spanish. So we want to keep this focus on understanding the needs and taking into account all of their opinions.
True. And talking about different audiences, I'm very much sure that the Brazilian audience wants to understand or to see different content than the German audience wants, than the Italian audience wants. Because talking right now, at least, with a little bit more authority in the subject. Back in Brazil, the first language we aim to learn is English, naturally, because it allows us to go to the USA, to go to the UK, or to travel all over the world, thinking that at least most people will learn English. And then naturally, the second one is Spanish. For example, even inside my family, my brother is very much fluent in Spanish ever since he was a teenager, while I took the English route. And then right now, I'm the one taking the Spanish route, and he's the one taking the English route. So if you were even to talk in the same household, my brother would have a different priority towards the materials that he would like to learn in Spanish than I would. Because at least for myself right now, I would like to understand more about professional terms so that I could utilize my Spanish towards my work. While my brother, when he was studying, he wanted to understand everything about Spanish. So we are always talking about different needs, different books, different products, different audiences. And as you even said so yourself, there is this thing now that's helping everyone towards better learning things or understanding better, which is AI. So my question to you would be, is it indeed the next big trend in digital learning content? Is it indeed something that the teachers are leveraging and that can help them? Or is the market already talking to you in regards to, Ivan, maybe AI will replace everything at all, and there's no need to have more books anymore. Thank you for your time. How is it right now? How can you talk? I mean, what can you share in regards to it?
So a couple of years ago, when AI started becoming a big thing, there was this huge concern on education and publishers. Will AI replace books? Will AI replace teachers? So there was this big concern. So the curve went like this, and then they started to become stable, and then they started to, a lot of AI tools have appeared, and they do magic things, a lot of things. And in the end, there's been a lot of talks, a lot of webinars, a lot of lectures about AI and education, and specifically in language education. But then we have seen that the role of the teacher will never be replaced because there are still parts of AI that cannot cover fully personalized feedback and other areas that are very difficult to replace. And emotional intelligence still very hard for an AI. Maybe we will get there in a few years. Understanding the full picture of a student, the whole context, their background, that's very difficult for an AI because you need a human being. You need a human being that will connect not only the rational, but also the emotional. So, after a while, then the AI concern became a bit more stable. And then we started to see, okay, how can we make AI help us? It's not really a threat. It's just a support system. So we started working with this. We've seen that it hasn't replaced the books yet. So that hasn't happened yet. We're still selling even more than last year. So
that's nice.
Difusión is going really, really well. And we see that also the concern is, the souffle has gone down a little bit, and then people are, okay, let's go back to normal. Let's go. Also, even after the COVID, also there was this thing about like everything will go digital. Okay, we have digitalized much more our industry, our sector, but the books are still there. The paper is still there. There are many markets where they still want paper. Brazil, for instance, is a very digital country, but there are countries like Germany. In Germany, they said, okay, this is good, it's fine, but give us a book. Give us a paper we can touch, we can write on. So paper is still not going to disappear in at least 10, 15 years. We still have books and paper. So AI is just a tool for us to help us. And it's helping teachers a lot teachers, they have a lot of work. And sometimes it's a bit invisible. It seems like an easy job. In many countries, it's not even a popular profession.
No,
and
it's
underpaid. And it is
underpaid.
extremely important because it means the education of our children. AI has managed to help them even in their administrative work, like lesson plans. There are many tools now that you can use to help you create your lesson plans. We are even in the new books that we are releasing this year. Every book has an AI guide that is related to the book. And we tell you which tools you can use to better use AI with that book, which means you won't be using just AI, but you can use AI to improve the quality of your classes, to improve your efficiency and other areas. So it's just an improvement or little things that you can do faster or better, but we're still going to be using our books or our digital content.
Perfect. I 100% agree. And even as a student, as I said, I'm learning. You see, I use Duolingo right now for Spanish because most, if not 90% of my day is talking in English or in Portuguese, which is already given for me. And I need to keep myself updated so that I don't forget about some specific words, some specific terms, and even how to pronounce it perfectly. So having a tool to help where I can sometimes go at it at 11:30 p.m. or sometimes at 1 a.m. is indeed helpful. But as you said, nothing replaces a teacher because when I started learning Spanish was through a teacher and I had an immense growth in 6 months that I would never had using Duolingo or an AI because the teacher was there to literally push me towards making sure that everything was going accordingly, was pushing to make sure that I wasn't talking in a bad way or in a bad manner or anything else. So teachers themselves, they're still very much helpful, and I 100% agree. And it's nice to know that you also value them both as customers and as a community and as partners and everything else. Which then leads to my question, because you see a lot of companies, a lot of businesses, they really don't know how to value these partners, these customers, these communities. And at the end of the day, they're just pushing towards making more sales, but they don't care if people will stick around. So, talking more about Ivan as the sales and marketing director and the knowledge that you gathered across years of experience in different companies, do you or have you seen a mistake when such companies are trying to generate quality leads that you are not repeating at Difusión and the other companies as well?
I think one of the main mistakes is thinking that global strategies will work everywhere.
Oh, perfect.
I know personalization, we always talk about personalization in marketing, but it is true that when you start working with big amount of leads, markets, etc., at some point you want to standardize processes. True. And so you have to find a balance, like, okay, the more you personalize, the more work you have to do, the more people you need, people with languages, with special skills, etc. But then the fight between, okay, you make it easier, so you try to scale it, because our CEOs will try to push us like, okay, let's try to do the things in a more standard way. So you need less people, you need less hands. So this is probably one of the biggest mistakes. Like, okay, let's go global. We have global guidelines, even brand guidelines that, when you study brand management, it's like, yeah, the brand needs to be consistent, always the same, true. Always the same values. It's not necessarily true, because the values can slightly differ from Germany to Brazil, it's still the same brand.
Of course,
It's just
yeah.
communicating slightly different, because what is important for you, it might be more relevant in Germany than in Brazil. So, these strategies are like, hey, something is global, we have these guidelines, it's valid for everybody. I think this is a common mistake. And also, as I mentioned before, like these aggressive commercial strategies, we also don't do that at Difusión. We really want to build this long-lasting relationship with
Perfect.
teachers, with the department heads. We can be visiting 4 years the same guy and telling us no every year, like, no, I'm committed to another publisher. But
Mhm.
you never know why. You never know when things can change,
True.
and it happens that, after 5 years relationship, we've invited that person to our events, and then he starts having, the bond with the brand, the bond with our content, and then finally he decides to change.
That's
So
actually
for
a
us,
very
it's
good
way more
tactic.
important to build long-lasting relationships and to create this connection with our content, with our
Mhm.
high-quality materials. And at
Mhm.
some point, you would love what we do. And at some
Yeah.
point, you will buy us. Maybe not, but if you buy us, great. Then we make business.
Perfect. Perfect. And then right now, how are you getting in touch with those customers or with those leads and with those that are still not a customer of yours, but you want to make sure that they stick around? Because as you said, you create the events, you try to make sure that everything's personalized, that they understand the value of your brand. But naturally, now pushing towards the marketing side of things, is Diffusion really working in the traditional matter of utilizing newsletters, YouTube content? As you said, content is very much important for yourself, for your brand. So how are you sending that content right now?
Well, we're using let's say, a traditional omni-channel strategy. So we work with all the digital channels. So yeah, we do
Perfect.
some campaigns as well, newsletters. We have a huge database, because you can imagine we
Yeah.
started gathering leads or contacts 1988. So we've
Yeah.
been transferring those leads from CRM to CRM, because of course in those years we've changed systems a few times. But we are again attracting people because of our knowledge, because of our high skilled professionals. We have a few professionals in our company who've been working for 20 years for Difusión.
Oh,
They're really well known in the industry. They know some names. They're really famous, and they attract a lot of people. And we also do this peer to peer, but then peer to peer to peer. So we convince you. You will probably convince your colleague. You will
true.
show our materials to your colleague. So in the end, it's like a little network, like a spider web. But in the end, yeah, it is like training, high quality training, that is our biggest tool to attract leads and new contacts. Yes, we do all the rest. We do digital marketing, but the webinars and the face-to-face events and big congresses are our biggest attraction pole for new leads, new contacts.
That's awesome. That's really, you see, it's so nice to see whenever a company comes around, a guest comes around, that everything is working, everything managed to work itself. Again, you have a brand authority established since 88. You have, as you said, people working 20 years in the company. They already have their own reputation. And you are in a market where quality matters, right? It's not only about pricing, it's not only about having a nice virtual or digital brand that's cool enough, Gen V or stuff like this. No, you're actually delivering value towards different markets all over the world. So my last question to you, Ivan, and then we can close this, is gonna be a question actually more towards yourself as a person, but that I think will make sense to everything that we just talked about. You traveled to a lot of countries, right? If I'm correct, it was what, 51 countries? Is that it?
91, just add 40
91.
more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Just add 40 more. Yes. And then we'll get it. 91 countries. That's actually, in my opinion, that's very much a privilege that you had, and you should be very much glad to have that privilege, of course. Different languages, different cultures, 91 different food. So this naturally help you with the professional that you are right now. This helped you understand better about different cultures, different ways to perceive value towards talking to different people. And naturally, of course, now that you're the director of sales and marketing, this helped you further understand how to sell even more books at different markets in 2025 with AI, with different technologies and everything else. But then
Yeah.
if you were to start a new publisher today, okay, and not a Spanish one, let's pretend in this fictional scenario we're not gonna be a competitor of Difusión. You're just starting a Portuguese publisher company where you want different markets to learn Portuguese. What is something that you would not do at all? Okay, because the things that we could do, you already talked around during the episode, but I want to understand that what is something that you would not do at any point whatsoever that you see that a lot of companies do and you know it's a mistake.
What I would for sure not do is not talking to customers, not truly deeply understanding their needs. I mean, this I see it sometimes. I see products have been launched on the market, and I wonder who is the target
Yeah.
audience.
Who is this to, right? Who's gonna buy
Who did
this?
they do this for? It
Yeah.
was just some initiatives from somebody in the editorial department. Did they not really check? So I see it very often, and I think understanding clients, talking to clients. I mean, I talk to clients a lot. I talk to big clients, but I talk to small clients, to teachers when we go to events. I love connecting with them, understanding their needs. So I think this is one of the biggest mistakes because we're not selling Coca-Cola or shoes.
Yeah.
It's not a mass market product. It's a very specialized product. We really need to fulfill their needs. And even so, every country has their own needs. Even in every country, every segment has their own needs. So sometimes it's difficult to think of a product that will go internationally. We do have international products and then adapt it per market. But in the end, we spend a lot of time and we put a lot of effort in really understanding them. Like we do a lot of class observation. We do hundreds every year. I send people to just, sit down on a class and take little notes silently on a corner to understand. Because, for instance, we do books and we hope or we expect teachers to follow our book, but then we see they're using just 30% of the book. So sometimes we wonder,
That's so interesting.
okay, we have to think of this because we are thinking or expecting that they will only use a book. But of course, a book is just a tool. They use a book, but then they go to Genially, then they go to just a website, then they have their own materials as well. So we have to take all of this into account. So understanding the client from the field, for me, it's absolutely key.
Perfect. Perfect. And I agree. I agree. And now that you said so, I remember as a student having to buy some books where we would just utilize it like 10% of the whole course. You would just utilize that book and then you would think to yourself, why did I buy this? Why did they make me? Because it's not why I bought it. It's why did they make me buy this if they're not even using it that much? It is true. This happens. Oh my God, that's such a enlightenment that I had around here. Well, there's no way to make sure that we keep tabs over the classrooms, right? But as you said, you could make sure to extract the most out of it, the most out of the teacher, the most out of the book, the most out of everything. And that's, I think, how Difusion managed to be successful for such a long time. Thank you for sharing everything, Ivan. Really, it was really, you see, we talk a lot about tech here overall, but talking about a publisher who is not like a Harry Potter book or is not like a Percy Jackson or something that would go towards children and teenagers is really something extra. Now coming, and this is the last one, I think this is going to be the most important question throughout the show. Everybody's waiting to know the same thing. 91 countries. Which one had the best pizza?
Oh my God.
I know, very
I cannot
difficult
say
question.
anything but Italy. But you know that one pizza place in Barcelona was considered the best pizza place in Europe. So yes, we do actually have really good pizza places, but we have a lot of Italians in Barcelona.
That's true.
But
okay, so
I would
not
say Italy,
being
otherwise my
Barcelona in
Italian
Italy.
friends will kill me.
Okay, so Victor will ask a different question. Outside of Italy and outside of Barcelona, best pizza you had?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, that's what I want to extract from you. Like, the non-logical answer. What would it be?
I'm not really sure. I don't think I can give you an answer because you're breaking my heart by not letting me say either Barcelona or Italy.
The third best pizza, if not Italy, if not Barcelona, then the third one,
I've tried good pizza outside. I've tried, depending on the type of pizza, but I've tried good pizza in the US, for instance.
The
There is,
US, I agree with you. Even though it's not very similar to the Italian, the European
yes,
pizza, it is
it's quite
still very much
different.
tasty.
But
Yeah.
it's like the Argentinian one. They have one
Oh,
in
really?
Buenos Aires. Italians will not even consider it pizza, but I
Uh-huh.
like it because it has
Same as the
tons of
Brazilian
cheese.
pizza.
Yeah.
Same as Brazilian pizza. You see, one pizza, I think this you will agree with me. One pizza, not one pizza, but one place that I've been to where pizza is kind of hit or miss is the UK.
Hmm.
In my opinion, the UK, they either know very much how to do the pizza, and usually the man or the woman doing it is Italian,
Hmm.
or it's just gonna be like this, I don't know, very tough dough with not a lot of cheese and usually very plain overall. This is what I felt. For those in the UK that are watching me, I think they will agree. I'm not talking bad about their pizza, just, not the best place to have pizza, right? But Barcelona having a good one, that's actually very nice to know. So for everyone who's watching, even myself, and you are in Barcelona, you're going to Barcelona, you're gonna find all of Ivan's links down the description below the like button. Do follow the man on LinkedIn. Do follow his work. Everything about Difusión will be here as well. And once you are in Barcelona, as I said, if you already know Spanish or Catalonian, which is different, by the way, just follow him to ask about the pizza. But if you're looking to learn Spanish, if you're looking to learn and improve yourself into the Spanish language, into the Catalonian language, into French and Italian, which are also with some books, right? You know
Hmm.
who to look for. Ivan, thank you so much for the amazing conversation. It was an
Thank you.
honor having you here on the
It's been a
show.
pleasure.
It
It's been my
is. It
pleasure.
is. Let's just make sure that Barcelona right now walks through the Champions League semifinals against Inter Milan so that we can mock the PSG fans at the final. Because I'm very much sure the PSG will go to the final. Not sure Arsenal will be, there, but who knows? We never
Yeah.
know.
We'll see
Yeah,
in a few
we'll
days.
see. That's it, everyone. Until then, take care.